60 days. No account shall be taken of any period during which the House is prorogued or adjourned for more than 4 consecutive days. 5. Other cases, a member has to vacate his seat in the Parliament. A. If his election is declared void by the court. B. If he is expelled by the House. C. If he is elected to the office of President or Vice President. And D. If he is appointed to the office of Governor of a state. If a disqualified person is elected to the Parliament, the Constitution lays down no procedure to declare the election void. This matter is dealt by the Representation of the People Act 1951, which enables the High Court to declare an election void if a disqualified candidate is elected. The aggrieved party can appeal to the Supreme Court against the order of the High Court in this regard. Oath or affirmation. Every member of either House of Parliament, before taking his seat in the House, has to make and subscribe to an oath or affirmation before the President or some person appointed by him for this purpose. In his oath or affirmation, a member of Parliament swears 1. To bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. 2. To uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, and 3. To faithfully discharge the duty upon which he is about to enter. Unless a member takes the oath, he cannot vote and participate in the proceedings of the House and does not become eligible to parliamentary privileges and immunities. A person is liable to a penalty of 500 rupees for each day he sits or votes as a member in a House in the following conditions. 1. Before taking and subscribing to the prescribed oath or affirmation, or 2. When he knows that he is not qualified or that he is disqualified for its membership, or 3. When he knows that he is prohibited from sitting or voting in the House by virtue of any parliamentary law. Salaries and allowances. Members of either House of Parliament are entitled to receive such salaries and allowances as may be determined by Parliament, and there is no provision of pension in the Constitution. However, Parliament has provided pension to the members. In 1954, the Parliament enacted the Salaries, Allowances and Pension of Members of Parliament Act. In 2010, the Parliament increased the salary of members from 16,000 to 50,000 per month, the constituency allowance from 20,000 to 45,000 per month, the daily allowance from 1,000 to 2,000 for each day of residence on duty, and office expenses allowance from 20,000 to 45,000 per month. From 1976, the members are also entitled to a pension on a graduated scale for each 5-year term as members of either House of Parliament. Besides, they are provided with traveling facilities, free accommodation, telephone, vehicle advance, medical facilities and so on. The salaries and allowances of the Speaker of Lok Sabha and the Chairman of Rajya Sabha are also determined by Parliament. They are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of Parliament. In 1953, the Parliament enacted the Salaries and Allowances of Officers of Parliament Act. Under this Act, as amended, the salary of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha has been fixed at 1.25 lakh per month, 9A. Similarly, other officers of Parliament, i.e., the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, are entitled to receive a salary per month at the same rates as are payable to the members of Parliament, 9B. Further, each officer of Parliament, including the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, is entitled to receive a daily allowance for each day during the whole of his term, at the same rates as is payable to the members of Parliament, 9C. Also, each officer of Parliament other than the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha is entitled to receive a constituency allowance at the same rate as is payable to the members of Parliament, 9D. According to the same Act, the sumptuary allowance is paid to the Speaker of the Lok Sabha at the same rate as is payable to a Cabinet Minister, 9E, i.e., 2,000 per month. Likewise, the sumptuary allowance is paid to the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha and the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha at the same rate as is payable to a Minister of State, 9F, i.e., 1,000 per month. P. Residing OFFICERS of PARLIAMENT. Each House of Parliament has its own presiding officer. There is a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker for the Lok Sabha and a Chairman and a Deputy Chairman for the Rajya Sabha. A panel of chairpersons for the Lok Sabha and a panel of vice chairpersons for the Rajya Sabha is also appointed. Speaker of Lok Sabha. Election and tenure. The Speaker is elected by the Lok Sabha from amongst its members, as soon as may be, after its first sitting. Whenever the office of the Speaker falls vacant, the Lok Sabha elects another member to fill the vacancy. The date of election of the Speaker is fixed by the President. Usually, the Speaker remains in office during the life of the Lok Sabha. However, he has to vacate his office earlier in any of the following three cases. 1. If he ceases to be a member of the Lok Sabha. 2. If he resigns by writing to the Deputy Speaker, and 3. If he is removed by a resolution passed by a majority of all the members of the Lok Sabha. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. When a resolution for the removal of the Speaker is under consideration of the House, he cannot preside at the sitting of the House, though he may be present. However, he can speak and take part in the proceedings of the House at such a time and vote in the first instance, though not in the case of inequality of votes. It should be noted here that, whenever the Lok Sabha is dissolved, the Speaker does not vacate his office and continues till the newly elected Lok Sabha meets. Role, powers and functions. The Speaker is the head of the Lok Sabha, and its representative. He is the guardian of powers and privileges of the members, the House as a whole and its committees. He is the principal spokesman of the House, and his decision in all parliamentary matters is final. He is thus much more than merely the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha. In these capacities, he is vested with vast, varied and vital responsibilities and enjoys great honor, high dignity and supreme authority within the House. The Speaker of the Lok Sabha derives his powers and duties from three sources, that is, the Constitution of India, the rules of procedure and conduct of business of Lok Sabha, and parliamentary conventions residuary powers that are unwritten or unspecified in the rules. Altogether, he has the following powers and duties. 1. He maintains order and decorum in the House for conducting its business and regulating its proceedings. This is his primary responsibility and he has final power in this regard. 2. He is the final interpreter of the provisions of A. the Constitution of India, B. the rules of procedure and conduct of business of Lok Sabha, and C. the parliamentary precedents within the House. 3. He adjourns the House or suspends the meeting in absence of a quorum. The quorum to constitute a meeting of the House is 1/10 of the total strength of the House. 4. He does not vote in the first instance. But he can exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. In other words, only when the House is divided equally on any question, the Speaker is entitled to vote. Such vote is called casting vote, and its purpose is to resolve a deadlock. 5. He presides over a joint sitting of the two Houses of Parliament. Such a sitting is summoned by the President to settle a deadlock between the two Houses on a bill. 6. He can allow a secret sitting of the House at the request of the Leader of the House. When the House sits in secret, no stranger can be present in the chamber, lobby or galleries except with the permission of the Speaker. 7. He decides whether a bill is a money bill or not and his decision on this question is final. When a money bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the President for assent, the Speaker endorses on the bill his certificate that it is a money bill. 8. He decides the questions of disqualification of a member of the Lok Sabha, arising on the ground of defection under the provisions of the 10th schedule. In 1992, the Supreme Court ruled that the decision of the Speaker in this regard is subject to judicial review. 10. 9. He acts as the ex officio chairman of the Indian Parliamentary Group, which acts as a link between the Parliament of India and the various parliaments of the world. He also acts as the ex officio chairman of the Conference of Presiding Officers of legislative bodies in the country. 10. He appoints the chairman of all the parliamentary committees of the Lok Sabha and supervises their functioning. He himself is the chairman of the Business Advisory Committee, the Rules Committee and the General Purpose Committee. Independence and impartiality. As the office of the Speaker is vested with great prestige, position and authority, independence and impartiality becomes its sine qua non. 11. The following provisions ensure the independence and impartiality of the office of the Speaker. 1. He is provided with a security of tenure. He can be removed only by a resolution passed by the Lok Sabha by an absolute majority, i.e., a majority of the total members of the House, and not by an ordinary majority, i.e., a majority of the members present and voting in the House. This motion of removal can be considered and discussed only when it has the support of at least 50 members. 2. His salaries and allowances are fixed by Parliament. They are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of Parliament. 3. His work and conduct cannot be discussed and criticized in the Lok Sabha except on a substantive motion. 4. His powers of regulating procedure or conducting business or maintaining order in the House are not subject to the jurisdiction of any court. 5. He cannot vote in the first instance. He can only exercise a casting vote in the event of a tie. This makes the position of Speaker impartial. 6. He is given a very high position in the order of precedence. He is placed at 7th rank, along with the Chief Justice of India. This means, he has a higher rank than all cabinet ministers, except the Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister. In Britain, the Speaker is strictly a non-party man. There is a convention that the Speaker has to resign from his party and remain politically neutral. This healthy convention is not fully established in India, where the Speaker does not resign from the membership of his party on his election to the exalted office. Deputy Speaker of Lok Sabha. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker is also elected by the Lok Sabha itself from amongst its members. He is elected after the election of the Speaker has taken place. The date of election of the Deputy Speaker is fixed by the Speaker. Whenever the office of the Deputy Speaker falls vacant, the Lok Sabha elects another member to fill the vacancy. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker remains in office usually during the life of the Lok Sabha. However, he may vacate his office earlier in any of the following 3 cases. 1. If he ceases to be a member of the Lok Sabha. 2. If he resigns by writing to the Speaker, and 3. If he is removed by a resolution passed by a majority of all the members of the Lok Sabha. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. The Deputy Speaker performs the duties of the Speaker's office when it is vacant. He also acts as the Speaker when the latter is absent from the sitting of the House. In both the cases, he assumes all the powers of the Speaker. He also presides over the joint sitting of both the Houses of Parliament, in case the Speaker is absent from such a sitting. It should be noted here that the Deputy Speaker is not subordinate to the Speaker. He is directly responsible to the House. The Deputy Speaker has one special privilege, that is, whenever he is appointed as a member of a parliamentary committee, he automatically becomes its chairman. Like the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, while presiding over the House, cannot vote in the first instance. He can only exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. Further, when a resolution for the removal of the Deputy Speaker is under consideration of the House, he cannot preside at the sitting of the House, though he may be present. When the Speaker presides over the House, the Deputy Speaker is like any other ordinary member of the House. He can speak in the House, participate in its proceedings, and vote on any question before the House. The Deputy Speaker is entitled to a regular salary and allowance fixed by Parliament, and charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Up to the 10th Lok Sabha, both the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker were usually from the ruling party. Since the 11th Lok Sabha, there has been a consensus that the Speaker comes from the ruling party, or ruling alliance, and the post of Deputy Speaker goes to the main opposition party. The Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, while assuming their offices, do not make and subscribe any separate oath or affirmation. The institutions of Speaker and Deputy Speaker originated in India in 1921 under the provisions of the Government of India Act of 1919, Montagu-Chelmsford Reforms. At that time, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker were called the President and Deputy President respectively, and the same nomenclature continued till 1947. Before 1921, the Governor-General of India used to preside over the meetings of the Central Legislative Council. In 1921, the Frederick White and Sachidanand Sinha were appointed by the Governor-General of India as the first Speaker and the first Deputy Speaker respectively of the Central Legislative Assembly. In 1925, Vittrabhai J. Patel became the first Indian and the first elected Speaker of the Central Legislative Assembly. The Government of India Act of 1935 changed the nomenclatures of President and Deputy President of the Central Legislative Assembly to the Speaker and Deputy Speaker respectively. However, the old nomenclature continued till 1947 as the federal part of the 1935 Act was not implemented. G.V. Mavalankar and Ananthasayanam Iyengar had the distinction of being the first Speaker and the first Deputy Speaker, respectively, of the Lok Sabha. G.V. Mavalankar also held the post of Speaker in the Constituent Assembly, Legislative, as well as the Provisional Parliament. He held the post of Speaker of Lok Sabha continuously for 1 decade from 1946 to 1956. Panel of Chairpersons of Lok Sabha. Under the rules of Lok Sabha, the Speaker nominates from amongst the members a panel of not more than 10 chairpersons. Any of them can preside over the House in the absence of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker. He has the same powers as the Speaker when so presiding. He holds office until a new panel of chairpersons is nominated. When a member of the panel of chairpersons is also not present, any other person as determined by House acts as the Speaker. It must be emphasized here that a member of the panel of chairpersons cannot preside over the House when the office of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker is vacant. During such time, the Speaker's duties are to be performed by such member of the House as the President may appoint for the purpose. The elections are held, as soon as possible, to fill the vacant posts. Speaker pro tem. As provided by the Constitution, the Speaker of the last Lok Sabha vacates his office immediately before the first meeting of the newly elected Lok Sabha. Therefore, the President appoints a member of the Lok Sabha as the Speaker pro tem. Usually, the seniormost member is selected for this. The President himself administers oath to the Speaker pro tem. The Speaker pro tem has all the powers of the Speaker. He presides over the first sitting of the newly elected Lok Sabha. His main duty is to administer oath to the new members. He also enables the House to elect the new Speaker. When the new Speaker is elected by the House, the office of the Speaker pro tem ceases to exist. Hence, this office is a temporary office, existing for a few days. 12. Chairman of Rajya Sabha. The presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha is known as the Chairman. The Vice President of India is the ex officio Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. During any period when the Vice President acts as President or discharges the functions of the President, he does not perform the duties of the office of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. The Chairman of the Rajya Sabha can be removed from his office only if he is removed from the office of the Vice President. As a presiding officer, the powers and functions of the Chairman in the Rajya Sabha are similar to those of the Speaker in the Lok Sabha. However, the Speaker has two special powers which are not enjoyed by the Chairman. 1. The Speaker decides whether a bill is a money bill or not, and his decision on this question is final. 2. The Speaker presides over a joint sitting of two houses of Parliament. Unlike the Speaker, who is a member of the House, the Chairman is not a member of the House. But like the Speaker, the Chairman also cannot vote in the first instance. He too can cast a vote in the case of inequality of votes. The Vice President cannot preside over a sitting of the Rajya Sabha as its chairman when a resolution for his removal is under consideration. However, he can be present and speak in the House and can take part in its proceedings, without voting, even at such a time, while the Speaker can vote in the first instance when a resolution for his removal is under consideration of the Lok Sabha. As in case of the Speaker, the salaries and allowances of the Chairman are also fixed by the Parliament. They are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and thus are not subject to the annual vote of Parliament. During any period when the Vice President acts as President or discharges the functions of the President, he is not entitled to any salary or allowance payable to the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. But he is paid the salary and allowance of the President during such a time. Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha. The Deputy Chairman is elected by the Rajya Sabha itself from amongst its members. Whenever the office of the Deputy Chairman falls vacant, the Rajya Sabha elects another member to fill the vacancy. The Deputy Chairman vacates his office in any of the following three cases. 1. If he ceases to be a member of the Rajya Sabha. 2. If he resigns by writing to the Chairman, and 3. If he is removed by a resolution passed by a majority of all the members of the Rajya Sabha. Such a resolution can be moved only after giving 14 days advance notice. The Deputy Chairman performs the duties of the Chairman's office when it is vacant or when the Vice President acts as President or discharges the functions of the President. He also acts as the Chairman when the latter is absent from the sitting of the House. In both the cases, he has all the powers of the Chairman. It should be emphasized here that the Deputy Chairman is not subordinate to the Chairman. He is directly responsible to the Rajya Sabha. Like the Chairman, the Deputy Chairman, while presiding over the House, cannot vote in the first instance. He can only exercise a casting vote in the case of a tie. Further, when a resolution for the removal of the Deputy Chairman is under consideration of the House, he cannot preside over a sitting of the House, though he may be present. When the chairman presides over the House, the deputy chairman is like any other ordinary member of the House. He can speak in the House, participate in its proceedings, and vote on any question before the House. Like the chairman, the deputy chairman is also entitled to a regular salary and allowance. They are fixed by Parliament and are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Panel of Vice Chairpersons of Rajya Sabha. Under the rules of Rajya Sabha, the chairman nominates from amongst the members a panel of vice chairpersons. Any one of them can preside over the House in the absence of the chairman or the deputy chairman. He has the same powers as the chairman when so presiding. He holds office until a new panel of vice chairpersons is nominated. When a member of the panel of vice chairpersons is also not present, any other person as determined by the House acts as the chairman. It must be emphasized here that a member of the panel of vice chairpersons cannot preside over the House when the office of the chairman or the deputy chairman is vacant. During such time, the chairman's duties are to be performed by such member of the House as the President may appoint for the purpose. The elections are held, as soon as possible, to fill the vacant posts. Secretariat of Parliament. Each House of Parliament has separate secretarial staff of its own, though there can be some posts common to both the houses. Their recruitment and service conditions are regulated by Parliament. The Secretariat of each House is headed by a Secretary General. He is a permanent officer and is appointed by the presiding officer of the House. LEADERSNPARLIAMENT. Leader of the House. Under the rules of Lok Sabha, Leader of the House means the Prime Minister, if he is a member of the Lok Sabha, or a minister who is a member of the Lok Sabha and is nominated by the Prime Minister to function as the Leader of the House. There is also a Leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha. He is a minister and a member of the Rajya Sabha and is nominated by the Prime Minister to function as such. The Leader of the House in either house is an important functionary and exercises direct influence on the conduct of business. He can also nominate a deputy Leader of the House. The same functionary in USA is known as the Majority Leader. Leader of the Opposition. In each House of Parliament, there is the Leader of the Opposition. The leader of the largest opposition party having not less than 1/10 seats of the total strength of the House is recognized as the Leader of the Opposition in that House. In a parliamentary system of government, the Leader of the Opposition has a significant role to play. His main functions are to provide a constructive criticism of the policies of the government and to provide an alternative government. Therefore, the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha were accorded statutory recognition in 1977. They are also entitled to the salary, allowances and other facilities equivalent to that of a cabinet minister. It was in 1969 that an official Leader of the Opposition was recognized for the first time. The same functionary in USA is known as the Minority Leader. The British political system has an unique institution called the Shadow Cabinet. It is formed by the opposition party to balance the ruling cabinet and to prepare its members for future ministerial offices. In this shadow cabinet, almost every member in the ruling cabinet is shadowed by a corresponding member in the opposition cabinet. This shadow cabinet serves as the alternate cabinet if there is change of government. That is why Ivor Jennings described the Leader of Opposition as the alternative Prime Minister. He enjoys the status of a minister and is paid by the government. Whip. Though the offices of the Leader of the House and the Leader of the Opposition are not mentioned in the Constitution of India, they are mentioned in the rules of the House and Parliamentary Statute respectively. The office of Whip, on the other hand, is mentioned neither in the Constitution of India nor in the rules of the House nor in a parliamentary statute. It is based on the conventions of the parliamentary government. Every political party, whether ruling or opposition, has its own whip in the parliament. He is appointed by the political party to serve as an assistant floor leader. He is charged with the responsibility of ensuring the attendance of his party members in large numbers and securing their support in favor of or against a particular issue. He regulates and monitors their behavior in the parliament. The members are supposed to follow the directives given by the whip. Otherwise, disciplinary action can be taken. SESSIONS of PARLIAMENT. Summoning. The President from time to time summons each House of Parliament to meet. But, the maximum gap between two sessions of Parliament cannot be more than 6 months. In other words, the Parliament should meet at least twice a year. There are usually 3 sessions in a year, viz. 1. The budget session, February to May. 2. The monsoon session, July to September, and 3. The winter session, November to December. A session of Parliament is the period spanning between the first sitting of a House and its prorogation, or dissolution in the case of the Lok Sabha. During a session, the House meets every day to transact business. The period spanning between the prorogation of a House and its reassembly in a new session is called recess. Adjournment. A session of Parliament consists of many meetings. Each meeting of a day consists of 2 sittings, that is, a morning sitting from 11 am to 1 pm and post-lunch sitting from 2 pm to 6 pm. A sitting of Parliament can be terminated by adjournment or adjournment sine die or prorogation or dissolution in the case of the Lok Sabha. An adjournment suspends the work in a sitting for a specified time, which may be hours, days or weeks. Adjournment sine die. Adjournment sine die means terminating a sitting of Parliament for an indefinite period. In other words, when the House is adjourned without naming a day for reassembly, it is called adjournment sine die. The power of adjournment as well as adjournment sine die lies with the presiding officer of the House. He can also call a sitting of the House before the date or time to which it has been adjourned or at any time after the House has been adjourned sine die. Prorogation. The presiding officer, Speaker or Chairman, declares the House adjourned sine die when the business of a session is completed. Within the next few days, the President issues a notification for prorogation of the session. However, the President can also prorogue the House while in session. The specific differences between adjournment and prorogation are summarized in Table 22.1. Table 22.1 Adjournment vs Prorogation. Adjournment prorogation. 1. It only terminates a sitting and not a session of the House. 1. It not only terminates a sitting but also a session of the House. 2. It is done by Presiding Officer of the House. 2. It is done by the President of India. 3. It does not affect the bills or any other business pending before the House and the same can be resumed when the House meets again. 3. It also does not affect the bills or any other business pending before the House. 13. However, all pending notices other than those for introducing bills, lapse on prorogation and fresh notices have to be given for the next session. In Britain, prorogation brings to an end all bills or any other business pending before the House. Dissolution. Rajya Sabha, being a permanent house, is not subject to dissolution. Only the Lok Sabha is subject to dissolution. Unlike a prorogation, a dissolution ends the very life of the existing house, and a new house is constituted after general elections are held. The dissolution of the Lok Sabha may take place in either of 2 ways. 1. Automatic dissolution, that is, on the expiry of its tenure of 5 years or the terms is extended during a national emergency, or 2. Whenever the President decides to dissolve the House, which he is authorized to do. Once the Lok Sabha is dissolved before the completion of its normal tenure, the dissolution is irrevocable. When the Lok Sabha is dissolved, all business including bills, motions, resolutions, notices, petitions and so on pending before it or its committees lapse. They to be pursued further must be reintroduced in the newly constituted Lok Sabha. However, some pending bills and all pending assurances that are to be examined by the Committee on Government Assurances do not lapse on the dissolution of the Lok Sabha. The position with respect to lapsing of bills is as follows. 1. A bill pending in the Lok Sabha lapses, whether originating in the Lok Sabha or transmitted to it by the Rajya Sabha. 2. A bill passed by the Lok Sabha but pending in the Rajya Sabha lapses. 3. A bill not passed by the 2 houses due to disagreement and if the President has notified the holding of a joint sitting before the dissolution of Lok Sabha, does not lapse. 4. A bill pending in the Rajya Sabha but not passed by the Lok Sabha does not lapse. 5. A bill passed by both houses but pending assent of the President does not lapse. 6. A bill passed by both houses but returned by the President for reconsideration of houses does not lapse. Quorum. Quorum is the minimum number of members required to be present in the House before it can transact any business. It is 1/10 of the total number of members in each House including the presiding officer. It means that there must be at least 55 members present in the Lok Sabha and 25 members present in the Rajya Sabha, if any business is to be conducted. If there is no quorum during a meeting of the House, it is the duty of the presiding officer either to adjourn the House or to suspend the meeting until there is a quorum. Voting in House. All matters at any sitting of either House or joint sitting of both the Houses are decided by a majority of votes of the members present and voting, excluding the presiding officer. Only a few matters, which are specifically mentioned in the Constitution like impeachment of the President, amendment of the Constitution, removal of the presiding officers of the Parliament and so on, require special majority, not ordinary majority. The presiding officer of a House does not vote in the first instance, but exercises a casting vote in the case of inequality of votes. The proceedings of a House are to be valid irrespective of any unauthorized voting or participation or any vacancy in its membership. The following points can be noted with respect to the voting procedure in the Lok Sabha. 1. On the conclusion of a debate, the Speaker shall put the question and invite those who are in favor of the motion to say, Aye, and those against the motion to say, No. 2. The Speaker shall then say, I think the ayes or the noes, as the case may be, have it. If the opinion of the Speaker is to the decision of a question is not challenged, he shall say twice, the ayes or the noes, as the case may be, have it, and the question before the House shall be determined accordingly. 3. A. If the opinion of the Speaker is to the decision of a question is challenged, he shall order that the lobby be cleared. B. After the lapse of 3 minutes and 30 seconds, he shall put the question a second time and declare whether in his opinion the ayes or the noes have it. C. If the opinion so declared is again challenged, he shall direct that the votes be recorded either by operating the automatic vote recorder or by using Aye and No slips in the House or by the members going into the lobbies. 4. If in the opinion of the Speaker, the division is unnecessarily claimed, he may ask the members who are for Aye and those for No, respectively, to rise in their places and, on account being taken, he may declare the determination of the House. In such a case, the names of the voters shall not be recorded. Language in Parliament. The Constitution has declared Hindi and English to be the languages for transacting business in the Parliament. However, the presiding officer can permit a member to address the House in his mother tongue. In both the Houses, arrangements are made for simultaneous translation. Though English was to be discontinued as a flow language after the expiration of 15 years from the commencement of the Constitution, that is, in 1965, the Official Languages Act 1963 allowed English to be continued along with Hindi. Rights of Ministers and Attorney General. In addition to the members of a House, every Minister and the Attorney General of India have the right to speak and take part in the proceedings of either House, any joint sitting of both the Houses and any committee of Parliament of which he is a member, without being entitled to vote. There are two reasons underlying this constitutional provision. 1. A minister can participate in the proceedings of a House, of which he is not a member. In other words, a minister belonging to the Lok Sabha can participate in the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha and vice versa. 2. A minister, who is not a member of either House, can participate in the proceedings of both the Houses. It should be noted here that a person can remain a minister for 6 months, without being a member of either House of Parliament. Lame duck session. It refers to the last session of the existing Lok Sabha, after a new Lok Sabha has been elected. Those members of the existing Lok Sabha who could not get re-elected to the new Lok Sabha are called lame ducks. DEVICES of PARLIAMENTARYPROCEEDINGS. Question hour. The first hour of every parliamentary sitting is slotted for this. During this time, the members ask questions and the ministers usually give answers. The questions are of three kinds, namely, starred, unstarred and short notice. A starred question, distinguished by an asterisk, requires an oral answer and hence supplementary questions can follow. An unstarred question, on the other hand, requires a written answer and hence, supplementary questions cannot follow. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days. It is answered orally. In addition to the ministers, the questions can also be asked to the private members. Thus, a question may be addressed to a private member if the subject matter of the question relates to some bill, resolution or other matter connected with the business of the House for which that member is responsible. The procedure in regard to such question is the same as that followed in the case of questions addressed to a minister. The list of starred and starred short notice questions and questions to private members are printed in green, white, light pink and yellow color, respectively, to distinguish them from one another. 0 hour. Unlike the question hour, the 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. Thus it is an informal device available to the members of the parliament to raise matters without any prior notice. The 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour and lasts until the agenda for the day, i.e., regular business of the House, is taken up. In other words, the time gap between the question hour and the agenda is known as 0 hour. It is an Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary procedures and has been in existence since 1962. Motions. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. The House expresses its decisions or opinions on various issues through the adoption or rejection of motions moved by either ministers or private members. The motions moved by the members to raise discussions on various matters fall into three principal categories. 14. 1. Substantive motion. It is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of chief election commissioner. 2. Substitute motion. It is a motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion and proposes an alternative to it. If adopted by the House, it supersedes the original motion. 3. Subsidiary motion. It is a motion that, by itself, has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceedings of the House. It is divided into three subcategories. A. Ancillary motion. It is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kinds of business. B. Superseding motion. It is moved in the course of debate on another issue and seeks to supersede that issue. C. Amendment. It seeks to modify or substitute only a part of the original motion. Closure motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. If the motion is approved by the House, debate is stopped forthwith and the matter is put to vote. There are four kinds of closure motions. 15. A. Simple closure. It is one when a member moves that the matter having been sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. B. Closure by compartments. In this case, the clauses of a bill or a lengthy resolution are grouped into parts before the commencement of the debate. The debate covers the part as a whole and the entire part is put to vote. C. Kangaroo closure. Under this type, only important clauses are taken up for debate and voting and the intervening clauses are skipped over and taken as passed. D. Guillotine closure. It is one when the undiscussed clauses of a bill or a resolution are also put to vote along with the discussed ones due to want of time, as the time allotted for the discussion is over. Privilege motion. It is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privileges by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding facts of a case or by giving wrong or distorted facts. Its purpose is to censure the concerned minister. Calling attention motion. It is introduced in the Parliament by a member to call the attention of a minister to a matter of urgent public importance, and to seek an authoritative statement from him on that matter. Like the 0 hour, it is also an Indian innovation in the parliamentary procedure and has been in existence since 1954. However, unlike the 0 hour, it is mentioned in the rules of procedure. Adjournment motion. It is introduced in the Parliament to draw attention of the House to a definite matter of urgent public importance, and needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. As it interrupts the normal business of the House, it is regarded as an extraordinary device. It involves an element of censure against the government and hence Rajya Sabha is not permitted to make use of this device. The discussion on an adjournment motion should last for not less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. The right to move a motion for an adjournment of the business of the House is subject to the following restrictions. 1. It should raise a matter which is definite, factual, urgent and of public importance. 2. It should not cover more than one matter. 3. It should be restricted to a specific matter of recent occurrence and should not be framed in general terms. 4. It should not raise a question of privilege. 5. It should not revive discussion on a matter that has been discussed in the same session. 6. It should not deal with any matter that is under adjudication by court, and 7. It should not raise any question that can be raised on a distinct motion. Table 22.2 Censure motion vs no confidence motion. Censure motion, no confidence motion. 1. It should state the reasons for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. Point 1. It need not state the reasons for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. 2. It can be moved against an individual minister or a group of ministers or the entire Council of Ministers. 2. It can be moved against the entire Council of Ministers only. 3. It is moved for censuring the Council of Ministers for specific policies and actions. 3. It is moved for ascertaining the confidence of Lok Sabha in the Council of Ministers. 4. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers need not resign from the office. 4. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers must resign from office. No confidence motion. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. It means that the ministry stays in office so long as it enjoys confidence of the majority of the members of the Lok Sabha. In other words, the Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from office by passing a no confidence motion. The motion needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. Censure motion. A censure motion is different from a no confidence motion as shown in table 22.2. Motion of thanks. The first session after each general election and the first session of every fiscal year is addressed by the President. In this address, the President outlines the policies and programs of the government in the preceding year and ensuing year. This address of the President, which corresponds to the speech from the throne in Britain, is discussed in both the Houses of Parliament on a motion called the motion of thanks. At the end of the discussion, the motion is put to vote. This motion must be passed in the House. Otherwise, it amounts to the defeat of the government. This inaugural speech of the President is an occasion available to the members of Parliament to raise discussions and debates to examine and criticize the government and administration for its lapses and failures. No day yet named motion. It is a motion that has been admitted by the Speaker but no date has been fixed for its discussion. The Speaker, after considering the state of business in the House and in consultation with the Leader of the House or on the recommendation of the Business Advisory Committee, allots a day or days or part of a day for the discussion of such a motion. Point of order. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A point of order should relate to the interpretation or enforcement of the rules of the House or such articles of the Constitution that regulate the business of the House and should raise a question that is within the cognizance of the Speaker. It is usually raised by an opposition member in order to control the government. It is an extraordinary device as it suspends the proceedings before the House. No debate is allowed on a point of order. Half an hour discussion. It is meant for discussing a matter of sufficient public importance, which has been subjected to a lot of debate and the answer to which needs elucidation on a matter of fact. The Speaker can allot 3 days in a week for such discussions. There is no formal motion or voting before the House. Short duration discussion. It is also known as 2-hour discussion as the time allotted for such a discussion should not exceed 2 hours. The members of the Parliament can raise such discussions on a matter of urgent public importance. The Speaker can allot 2 days in a week for such discussions. There is neither a formal motion before the House nor voting. This device has been in existence since 1953. Special mention. A matter which is not a point of order or which cannot be raised during question hour, half an hour discussion, short duration discussion or under adjournment motion, calling attention notice or under any rule of the House can be raised under the special mention in the Rajya Sabha. Its equivalent procedural device in the Lok Sabha is known as notice mention under Rule 377. Resolutions. The members can move resolutions to draw the attention of the House or the government to matters of general public interest. The discussion on a resolution is strictly relevant to and within the scope of the resolution. A member who has moved a resolution or amendment to a resolution cannot withdraw the same except by leave of the House. Resolutions are classified into 3 categories, 16. 1. Private member's resolution. It is one that is moved by a private member, other than a minister. It is discussed only on alternate Fridays and in the afternoon sitting. 2. Government resolution. It is one that is moved by a minister. It can be taken up any day from Monday to Thursday. 3. Statutory resolution, it can be moved either by a private member or a minister. It is so called because it is always tabled in pursuance of a provision in the Constitution or an Act of Parliament. Resolutions are different from motions in the following respects. All resolutions come in the category of substantive motions, that is to say, every resolution is a particular type of motion. All motions need not necessarily be substantive. Further, all motions are not necessarily put to vote of the House, whereas all the resolutions are required to be voted upon. 17. Youth Parliament. The scheme of Youth Parliament was started on the recommendation of the 4th All India Whips Conference. Its objectives are 1. To acquaint the younger generations with practices and procedures of Parliament. 2. To imbibe the spirit of discipline and tolerance, cultivating character in the minds of youth, and 3. To inculcate in the student community the basic values of democracy and to enable them to acquire a proper perspective on the functioning of democratic institutions. The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs provides necessary training and encouragement to the states in introducing the scheme. LEGISLATIVEPROCEDUREINPARLIAMENT. The legislative procedure is identical in both the Houses of Parliament. Every bill has to pass through the same stages in each house. A bill is a proposal for legislation and it becomes an act or law when duly enacted. Bills introduced in the Parliament are of two kinds: public bills and private bills, also known as government bills and private members' bills respectively. Though both are governed by the same general procedure and pass through the same stages in the House, they differ in various respects as shown in Table 22.3. The bills introduced in the Parliament can also be classified into four categories. 1. Ordinary bills, which are concerned with any matter other than financial subjects. 2. Money bills, which are concerned with the financial matters like taxation, public expenditure, etc. 3. Financial bills, which are also concerned with financial matters but are different from money bills. 4. Constitution amendment bills, which are concerned with the amendment of the provisions of the Constitution. Table 22.3 Public Bill vs Private Bill. Public Bill, Private Bill. 1. It is introduced in the Parliament by a minister. 1. It is introduced by any member of Parliament other than a minister. 2. It reflects of the policies of the government ruling party. 2. It reflects the stand of opposition party on public matter. 3. It has greater chance to be approved by the Parliament. 3. It has lesser chance to be approved by the Parliament. 4. Its rejection by the House amounts to the expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government and may lead to its resignation. 4. Its rejection by the House has no implication on the parliamentary confidence in the government or its resignation. 5. Its introduction in the House requires 7 days' notice. 5. Its introduction in the House requires 1 month's notice. 6. It is drafted by the concerned department in consultation with the Law Department. 6. Its drafting is the responsibility of the member concerned. The Constitution has laid down separate procedures for the enactment of all the four types of bills. The procedures with regard to ordinary bills, money bills and financial bills are explained here. The procedure with regard to Constitution amendment bills is explained in detail in Chapter 10. Ordinary bills. Every ordinary bill has to pass through the following 5 stages in the Parliament before it finds a place on the statute book. 1. First reading. An ordinary bill can be introduced in either House of Parliament. Such a bill can be introduced either by a minister or by any other member. The member who wants to introduce the bill has to ask for the leave of the House. When the House grants leave to introduce the bill, the mover of the bill introduces it by reading its title and objectives. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. If a bill is published in the Gazette before its introduction, leave of the House to introduce the bill is not necessary. 18. The introduction of the bill and its publication in the Gazette constitute the first reading of the bill. 2. Second reading. During this stage, the bill receives not only the general but also the detailed scrutiny and assumes its final shape. Hence, it forms the most important stage in the enactment of a bill. In fact, this stage involves 3 more sub-stages, namely, stage of general discussion, committee stage and consideration stage. A. Stage of general discussion. The printed copies of the bill are distributed to all the members. The principles of the bill and its provisions are discussed generally, but the details of the bill are not discussed. At this stage, the House can take any one of the following 4 actions. I. It may take the bill into consideration immediately or on some other fixed date. E. It may refer the bill to a select committee of the House. E. It may refer the bill to a joint committee of the 2 houses. And IV. It may circulate the bill to elicit public opinion. A select committee consists of members of the House where the bill has originated, and a joint committee consists of members of both the Houses of Parliament. B. Committee stage. The usual practice is to refer the bill to a select committee of the House. This committee examines the bill thoroughly and in detail, clause by clause. It can also amend its provisions, but without altering the principles underlying it. After completing the scrutiny and discussion, the committee reports the bill back to the House. C. Consideration stage. The House, after receiving the bill from the select committee, considers the provisions of the bill clause by clause. Each clause is discussed and voted upon separately. The members can also move amendments, and if accepted, they become part of the bill. 3. Third reading. At this stage, the debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill as a whole, and no amendments are allowed, as the general principles underlying the bill have already been scrutinized during the stage of second reading. If the majority of members present and voting accept the bill is regarded as passed by the House. Thereafter, the bill is authenticated by the presiding officer of the House and transmitted to the second House for consideration and approval. A bill is deemed to have been passed by the Parliament only when both the Houses have agreed to it, either with or without amendments. 4. Bill in the second House. In the second House also, the bill passes through all the 3 stages, that is, first reading, second reading and third reading. There are 4 alternatives before this House. A. It may pass the bill as sent by the first House, i.e., without amendments. B. It may pass the bill with amendments and return it to the first House for reconsideration. C. It may reject the bill altogether. And D. It may not take any action and thus keep the bill pending. If the second House passes the bill without any amendments or the first House accepts the amendments suggested by the second House, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses and the same is sent to the President for his assent. On the other hand, if the first House rejects the amendments suggested by the second House, or the second House rejects the bill altogether, or the second House does not take any action for 6 months, a deadlock is deemed to have taken place. To resolve such a deadlock, the President can summon a joint sitting of the 2 Houses. If the majority of members present and voting in the joint sitting approves the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses. 5. Assent of the President. Every bill after being passed by both Houses of Parliament either singly or at a joint sitting, is presented to the President for his assent. There are 3 alternatives before the President. A. He may give his assent to the bill, or B. He may withhold his assent to the bill, or C. He may return the bill for reconsideration of the Houses. If the President gives his assent to the bill becomes an act and is placed on the statute book. If the President withholds his assent to the bill, it ends and does not become an act. If the President returns the bill for reconsideration and if it is passed by both the Houses again with or without amendments and presented to the President for his assent, the President must give his assent to the bill. Thus, the President enjoys only a suspensive veto. 19. Money bills. Article 110 of the Constitution deals with the definition of money bills. It states that a bill is deemed to be a money bill if it contains only provisions dealing with all or any of the following matters. 1. The imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax. 2. The regulation of the borrowing of money by the Union Government. 3. The custody of the Consolidated Fund of India or the Contingency Fund of India, the payment of monies into or the withdrawal of money from any such fund. 4. The appropriation of money out of the Consolidated Fund of India. 5. Declaration of any expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or increasing the amount of any such expenditure. 6. The receipt of money on account of the Consolidated Fund of India or the public account of India or the custody or issue of such money, or the audit of the accounts of the Union or of a state, or 7. Any matter incidental to any of the matters specified above. However, a bill is not to be deemed to be money bill by reason only that it provides for 1. The imposition of fines or other pecuniary penalties, or 2. The demand or payment of fees for licenses or fees for services rendered, or 3. The imposition, abolition, remission, alteration or regulation of any tax by any local authority or body for local purposes. If any question arises whether a bill is a money bill or not, the decision of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is final. His decision in this regard cannot be questioned in any court of law or in the either House of Parliament or even the President. When a money bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the President for assent, the Speaker endorses it as a money bill. The Constitution lays down a special procedure for the passing of money bills in the Parliament. A money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha and that too on the recommendation of the President. Every such bill is considered to be a government bill and can be introduced only by a minister. After a money bill is passed by the Lok Sabha, it is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for its consideration. The Rajya Sabha has restricted powers with regard to a money bill. It cannot reject or amend a money bill. It can only make the recommendations. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, with or without recommendations. The Lok Sabha can either accept or reject all or any of the recommendations of the Rajya Sabha. If the Lok Sabha accepts any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the modified form. If the Lok Sabha does not accept any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by the Lok Sabha without any change. If the Rajya Sabha does not return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by the Lok Sabha. Thus, the Lok Sabha has more powers than Rajya Sabha with regard to a money bill. On the other hand, both the houses have equal powers with regard to an ordinary bill. Finally, when a money bill is presented to the President, he may either give his assent to the bill or withhold his assent to the bill but cannot return the bill for reconsideration of the houses. Normally, the President gives his assent to a money bill as it is introduced in the Parliament with his prior permission. Table 22.4 shows the differences between the procedures for the enactment of ordinary bills and money bills. Financial bills. Financial bills are those bills that deal with fiscal matters, that is, revenue or expenditure. However, the Constitution uses the term financial bill in a technical sense. Financial bills are of three kinds. 1. Money bills, Article 110. 2. Financial bills, I. Article 117(1). 3. Financial bills 2. Article 117(3). This classification implies that money bills are simply a species of financial bills. Hence, all money bills are financial bills but all financial bills are not money bills. Only those financial bills are money bills which contain exclusively those matters which are mentioned in Article 110 of the Constitution. These are also certified by the Speaker of Lok Sabha as money bills. The financial bills I and II, on the other hand, have been dealt with in Article 117 of the Constitution. Financial bills I. A financial bill I is a bill that contains not only any or all the matters mentioned in Article 110, but also other matters of general legislation. For instance, a bill that contains a borrowing clause, but does not exclusively deal with borrowing. In two respects, a financial bill I is similar to a money bill, A. Both of them can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and not in the Rajya Sabha, and B. Both of them can be introduced only on the recommendation of the President. In all other respects, a financial bill I is governed by the same legislative procedure applicable to an ordinary bill. Hence, it can be either rejected or amended by the Rajya Sabha, except that an amendment other than for reduction or abolition of a tax cannot be moved in either house without the recommendation of the President. In case of a disagreement between the two houses over such a bill, the President can summon a joint sitting of the two houses to resolve the deadlock. When the bill is presented to the President, he can either give his assent to the bill or withhold his assent to the bill or return the bill for reconsideration of the houses. Table 22.4 Ordinary Bill vs Money Bill. Ordinary Bill Money Bill. 1. It can be introduced either in the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. 1. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and not in the Rajya Sabha. 2. It can be introduced either by a minister or by a private member. 2. It can be introduced only by a minister. 3. It is introduced without the recommendation of the President. 3. It can be introduced only on the recommendation of the President. 4. It can be amended or rejected by the Rajya Sabha. Point 4. It cannot be amended or rejected by the Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha should return the bill with or without recommendations, which may be accepted or rejected by the Lok Sabha. 5. It can be detained by the Rajya Sabha for a maximum period of 6 months. 5. It can be detained by the Rajya Sabha for a maximum period of 14 days only. 6. It does not require the certification of the Speaker when transmitted to the Rajya Sabha if it has originated in the Lok Sabha. 6. It requires the certification of the Speaker when transmitted to the Rajya Sabha. 7. It is sent for the President's assent only after being approved by both the houses. In case of a deadlock due to disagreement between the 7, it is sent for the President's assent even if it is approved by only Lok Sabha. There is no chance of any disagreement to houses. A joint sitting of both the houses can be summoned by the President to resolve the deadlock between the two houses, and hence, there is no provision of joint sitting of both the houses in this regard. 8. Its defeat in the Lok Sabha may lead to the resignation of the government if it is